Let's bring in co-host of Blair and Barker, Jeff Blair. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, boys. How are you?
We are doing okay. We're doing okay. Last night was a bit of a frustrating one. Of course, you see Yusei Kikuchi continue his torrid run post the All-Star break, but absolutely no run support. If we're doing like what sticks in the craw after that one, what sticks in the craw for you after that one?
Probably, I think it was the third inning where Vladdy and George come up with the bases loaded, and you end up getting 2 strikeouts, and George strikes out on a slider after seeing, 3, 4 changeups in a row. Strikes out in a changeup after seeing 3 or 4 sliders in a row. Again, we saw a lot of good things in Boston. Admittedly, in 2 of those Red Sox games, they were using openers, and you were kind of doing it against the bullpen. And against Cleveland, you had 2 really good young pitchers. But, I mean, I saw a lot of signs last night of the same stuff that plagued the Blue Jays when we were throwing things around the studio a couple of weeks ago. Just an inability to cash in. And here's the thing. If you want to be a playoff team, or if you want to be a successful playoff team, you are not always going to have playoff games where you're going to have 14 or 15 opportunities to drive in runs in that game. The pitching's going to be good. Managers are more aggressive with their bullpen use. The crap relievers generally don't see the light of day. So the fact that we're still having this conversation concerns me. The only caveat I would throw out there is that for the first time this year against the Red Sox, we saw the Blue Jays with a team-wide approach to attacking the hitter, just as the Baltimore Orioles did to them in Toronto. And it is possible because the dude 2 nights ago was really, really good, Gavin Williams. And the guy last night has had a really good year. They've got good stuff. Both of those guys are going to make it hard on any team. So maybe you kind of look at that as a caveat. They just ran into 2 extremely good pitchers, but at the same time, Cleveland's not a playoff team, and you've got a lineup full of seasoned hitters. You would have to think that somebody would have been able to come through in one of those opportunities.
That's the thing, right? I mean, they have a rally in the 9th, and hey, it's tough getting that going against Clase. Good on them, but it does go back to that moment in the 3rd, and it'd be one thing if it's, a frustrating at bat, but you have 2 chances, or I guess 1 chance with less than 2 outs, but then a second chance with 2 outs, and it's back-to-back Ks. Like, that is the infuriating part of it. And, again, like we've all had the conversation all season long about hitting with runners in scoring position, but that in and of itself is a different animal. Like, that's more fundamentals of the game as opposed to hitting with runners in scoring position. Like, that is why that 3rd inning, just to steal Justin's turn of phrase, like, it does stick in my craw. It's extremely frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, you would think somebody would be able to put a ball in play.
You'd like it.
You really would. Now, I am going to say this. I have no idea why Dalton Varsho was hitting 5th. I understand that, you don't have Bichette. You're giving Chapman a scheduled day off, although he did pinch hit. Something that we, in the past, we've seen players with scheduled days off not pinch hit. And Davis Schneider was given a day off. So I understand that there were a ton of issues with the lineup created, I would suggest, by the fact that those players were given off days. And I also understand that you don't necessarily want a block of right-handed hitters in the middle of the lineup against Cleveland. But my goodness, is there a Jays fan out there that wouldn't rather have seen Danny Jansen move up 1 spot in the order ahead of Dalton Varsho? And it's I think my friend Kevin Barker has pointed this out. Dalton Varsho's had, I believe, the most plate appearances on this team with runners in scoring position. Or maybe it's runners in scoring position with 2 out. Whatever it is, he's been placed in the lineup at in certain positions that lend themselves to driving in runs. I mean, sometimes it's just bad luck. Sometimes the game unfolds and you end up with your number 7 hitter coming up twice in a game with your best opportunity to score. that happens. That's baseball. But you don't sort of poke the bear by moving the guy up intentionally in a lineup into a position where he's likely to have those offensive opportunities. So I didn't get that decision. And I haven't heard an explanation for it. Maybe Kevin and myself were the only ones that looked at that and thought it was a big deal. Maybe everybody else thought it was fine. But I really found that puzzling.
Yeah, I don't want to quibble with the decision to, promote Whit Merrifield, make him the leadoff guy, but everything does have, a potential consequence where if you make that move, if you put someone in a different spot, if you change and alter it one way to solve one problem, you might be causing or forcing another problem. And the fact that they went into yesterday's game with the final 5 guys in the order hitting under 225, I mean, there were going to be some spots where you didn't have the right guy up there, and I think it was somewhat self-inflicted, but also a product of, you didn't have Bo, and you decided that you needed to have an off day for Matt Chapman. We have seen some wacky stuff in the lineup or with the lineup so far in Cleveland, and it's resulted in this 1-1 record, but the pitching has been brilliant, and Yusei Kikuchi, of course, was dynamite yesterday. Is it even surprising anymore in the slightest for you when Yusei Kikuchi goes out there and just does what he's been doing for the bulk of this entire season?
Yes, kind of still, because, as good as he's been, and he has been really good, my lingering impression of Yusei Kikuchi is somebody who's horrible when they're not good and horrible when they're not on. And that goes back to last year. It goes back to the fact the Seattle Mariners basically looked at this guy and said, "Yeah, we want no part of this." I will say this, I think the thought for the past, 2 months or so was always, okay, this is swell. When the playoffs roll around, Kikuchi goes to the bullpen. I don't know. I don't know anymore. Look, Kevin Gausman and Jose Barrios are have been really good. Chris Bassett has kind of emerged as a steadying influence, but I can see a scenario in the postseason, presuming they get into the postseason, which I think they will. But I can see a scenario in the postseason where there may be a matchup that favors Yusei Kikuchi starting a game. And at this point, I'd be okay with that. And I would not have said that. I probably wouldn't have said that a month ago. But I think we've seen enough now. The body of work this year, the fact that he's had a couple of hiccups this year, the fact that and I guess this is the biggest surprise for me, the fact that on a couple of occasions we've seen him be visibly angry when he's been taken out of games. I liked seeing that. That suggested to me that he thinks he's better than other people think he is. He thinks that he's still the best opportunity to get that particular batter out, despite what the manager thinks. And we never saw that last year. I mean, last year at times it was like the guy couldn't get off the mound fast enough. If there'd been a trap door under the pitcher's mound, he would have pushed the button and gone down. He wouldn't have even walked off the field. So that's something I will say that I didn't think I'd be contemplating. The fact that there is a scenario where I need Yusei Kikuchi to start a playoff game for me. I'll tell you the other thing, because I don't know down the stretch. I mean, I'd be comfortable him starting a big game for me down the stretch right now. If the dude is going to give me 6 innings and hold his velocity the way he has and command the strike zone the way he has and mix his pitches up, I certainly wouldn't blanch at having him out there in a playoff game. Or in an important game. Frankly, I might even rather have him out there than Chris Bassett, just because if I have to watch Chris Bassett and Alejandro Kirk play hide the pitch calm one more time, I'm gonna throw stuff at the TV. Like, dudes, it's August. Figure this out. This isn't rocket science. They're buttons. Push them. So it is interesting, the discussion around Yusei Kikuchi. It's funny how nobody mentions his contract anymore either.
No, it's funny that just happened to work itself out. I'm with you. I love how, demonstrative is maybe too strong of a term, but how much he's wanted the ball, how much he's been acting like he belongs there, because he doesn't just belong. He's excelling. Whatever he's been.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair.
Yeah, whatever he's been since the All-Star break, and whatever lack of track record Kikuchi has with this team, Gausman's kind of on the other side of things. He has been scuffling since the All-Star break, but because he has been so nails in his Jays tenure, I think we're all sitting here going, it'll be fine, it'll be okay. I mean, obviously, the answer to this question is, well, a good performance. But what do you need to see out of Gausman today? Because by no means am I panicking, but I would like to see him have the kind of shutdown ace-like effort that we've seen out of the Cleveland starters for the past 2 nights. And I know that's a high bar, but he's a high-quality starting pitcher.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, first of all, he reminds me of Marco Estrada. It's like, he's the guy I want. If there's a nuclear war or there's we're on the verge of a nuclear war, I want Gausman with his finger on the button because he just doesn't. He's impervious. I mean, seriously, I don't. Other than Marco Estrada, I cannot remember too many Blue Jays pitchers that just give you the impression that the waters could be rising, the Rogers Center could be caving in on itself, and it's, I got this, just relax, I'll figure my way out of it somehow. So I don't know how much of what we've seen from Kevin Gausman is a lingering byproduct of that side issue. I don't know how much of it is the fact that this dude's just logged a ton of innings. And I'm not talking about this year, I'm talking about in his career. He's thrown a ton of innings. And, I would think you'd have to be concerned that at some point it might catch up. It might catch up to him. The thing about Kevin Gausman, though, that always gives me, that always kind of puts my mind at ease is even when he's not good, he gives you a chance to win.
Yeah, there's a high floor.
There is. And I've made this point several times. There are games this year where he is scuffling and he comes out after 5 2/3 or whatever. And I almost think more of him in those games than I do games where he said clear sailing, because you look at your scorebook, you go, how the hell did they just give up 3 runs? I mean, he's been all over the place. The ball's been in play. How did that just result in 3 runs? And I really do think one of the hidden strengths of Kevin Gausman is he's just makes you think that he's got everything under control, and that kind of percolates down to the rest of the team. But, having said that, I'm more concerned about what are the Jays going to do today than I am about what Kevin Gausman's going to do today.
In the event of nuclear war, Jeff, I'm not sure how involved I want Jordan Hicks to be. He's a little wild.
Depends whose side you're on.
Yeah, a little wild.
He could throw it, I'll tell you that much.
But obviously, the talent is tantalizing and it is there. Suddenly, there's an abundance of arms back there. In the end, all told, big games late September, maybe in the playoffs. Where do you expect Jordan Hicks to be plying his trade?
I think he'll probably be the 8th inning guy. When that acquisition was made, I thought, okay, this is the guy. We're going to see this guy maybe pitch in the 9th inning when Jordan Romano comes back. I mean, he's a different pitcher than Jordan Romano. We all know the strengths and weaknesses of Jordan Romano. Jordan Romano doesn't have 102 in the tank. He throws a lot of sliders. He's pretty easy to game plan for, but whereas Jordan Hicks is going to come. I mean, Jordan Hicks will come out and he could throw 102. He's got 102. He could throw every pitch 102 if he really wanted to. So, I admit that I do like velo, high velo, major velo in my closers. I like Emmanuel Clase. Jordan Romano's got a great track record. There are about 16 closers in baseball that I'd feel more comfortable with in the 9th inning of a World Series game than Jordan Romano. That's just me. I'm not criticizing Jordan Romano. I'm saying that's me personally. So I look at Jordan Hicks, and I think he might be that guy. But after seeing him a bit and sort of looking back at what the St. Louis Cardinals saw from Jordan Hicks and knowing how much the emphasis is on reliability, consistency, I think probably right now Jordan Romano's still your guy in the 9th inning. But, there may be matchups, there may be situations where Jordan Hicks is required to come in and get a strikeout instead of Jordan Romano. But, yeah, I think we've seen why the St. Louis Cardinals essentially gave up on this dude. I think Jason Stark told us there's a little bit of Nate Pearson in him. There is. If Nate Pearson threw 102, he'd probably be Jordan Hicks. But as Barker points out, when he is on, he is unhittable. Like the movement on his fastballs. If you go to Pitching Ninja or Twitter accounts like that and watch them break down the movement on his pitches is just it's remarkable. To the point where I think he's one of those guys. He knows what he's throwing, but I once the ball's released his hand, I think it's kind of 50-50, right? Where's it going to end up? Which side of the plate is it going to end up on? And I thought that the at-bat we saw in game 1 of this series, where Danny Jansen essentially took a strike away from him because he had to catch the ball. It was like he had to move his entire body to catch the damn ball or a run was going to score. It was clearly a strike, but the poor home plate umpire, I mean, you had to call it a ball because you've got a catcher who's basically slid across the entire width of the plate to catch it. Your mind, my God, it's out of control. It's got to be a ball. And I think that kind of showed us, that was the full Jordan Hicks experience right there. Runners on base, the catcher, having to be an acrobat for 3 batters, and you got the save. And I think that's maximum Jordan Hicks.